Hey guys, how the hell are you? It is that time of year once again, and by that time of year I mean it is the end of the year. It is the end of 2023. It is time that I kind of relay to you my top 10 new releases of this past year. The top 10 records that really did something for me, tripped my trigger, just hit a certain way, however you want to phrase it. These are the 10 records that really stuck with me. Before we move along though, I just want to remind you guys the same thing I informed you of last year. There is a Spotify playlist that I have set up that I update every single week. I literally wipe the whole thing and upload all new music onto this playlist from various sources such as Metal Injection, metalarchives.com, which has a very comprehensive list of new releases, of just a whole bunch of new releases that I think, from the way that they sound, like what I'm reading about them, might be something I might be into. So I upload them onto this list and I've made it public so that you guys can all enjoy it as well. By all means, feel free to give that playlist a follow. Every single week it gets updated. Hit shuffle, see if you guys discover something awesome, just like I've been doing this whole time as well. So this year's list was a little bit interesting in that probably the top 4 releases were all vying for that top spot at different points throughout the year. Like, they all were just holding my attention so well, and I really had a hard time here at the end of 2023 figuring out, okay, where do I really place those top 4? Probably the next few, yeah, they were always going to be in that spot, to be honest with you. Like, they all were great releases, but not really hitting the same way as those top 4. And then, honestly, at the bottom of the list, that was kind of a struggle, to the point where this last few weeks I've been going back and I've been re-listening to all of my favorite releases this year. Like, okay, am I making the right call here? Am I making the right placement in this list? And ultimately, this is just kind of what I ended up with. Starting off with number 10, I think we gotta go with this band called Ranok from the UK. Their new album, Conflagrations, kind of came out of left field. I added it to the playlist and it came on a shuffle one day and I was like, holy shit, what is this? This is interesting. On their Metal Archives page, it lists their genre as progressive death metal, and I think that is a very apt description of it. It is very death metal oriented, it's very death metal centric, but there are a lot of progressive elements that come through from time to time. Every so often you get something that would sound perfectly suitable on like a Devin Townsend record, a Gojira record. Extremely riff heavy too, and I can't tell you guys enough how much I enjoy that. I mean, I'm sure you guys have figured that out from watching my various videos over the years that I'm a huge fan of the riff. And these guys have got the gift of riff. Really memorable stuff. I mean, even from that very, very first intro even, leading into the first song, just tons of riffage that's extremely memorable, tons of little melody lines that are extremely memorable. This is definitely a great place to start off the top 10 list. So the next record on the list is one that I feel strongly about because I feel very strongly about the band themselves. That would be Cryptopsy's As Gamora Burns. I've always felt that this band, at least for the past maybe decade and a half or so, has really gotten a raw deal. A whole bunch of people coming out of the woodwork to say, oh, they've gone soft, they've changed their direction, etc. They never really did. It was just that maybe they put out some stuff that you didn't necessarily agree with, necessarily didn't like as much. And so ever since then, everyone has kind of been like poo-pooing this band. I've always felt that that's been complete and utter bullshit. And in my opinion, if you listen to this release and you don't hear a kick-ass blazing Cryptopsy record, I don't know what to tell you, man. You need to clean out your ears because the riffage on here is incredible, super technical. Like, these guys were the first like real extreme technical death metal band that I ever really got into, and I wouldn't call them tech death in the sense of like how we see the term these days, but they were definitely technical, extremely versatile, being able to jump from like slow tempos to fast tempos to double time to just really encapsulating everything there is extreme about this music. And this is honestly no exception. Right through and through, from the first notes all the way to the end, this is just classic Cryptopsy. It's an amazing record, and if you like your death metal about as extreme as it gets, and you haven't listened to this record, you're doing yourself a disservice. Coming up next on the list, I know a lot of you guys were complaining last year about the lack of clean vocals, the lack of progressive stuff, power metal stuff, the lack of anything with sort of like a cleaner vocal approach on my list last year. And that is because, in all 100% honesty, none of those records really hit how I wanted them to hit last year, so they didn't make it onto that list. Sorry, there was just better stuff that I listened to last year. That being said though, this year we've got a few coming up, the first of which, number 8, we've got Angus McSix. This record I was very eagerly anticipating because I loved Glory Hammer. I thought that band was absolutely incredible. When Angus McFife was let go of Glory Hammer, I was really kind of saddened by that. I don't want to pretend like I know what band politics were going on, so I'm not going to comment on that. But all the same, it was just disappointing. So to hear him come back with this new band, a new record where honestly every single song on this record is super duper catchy. Some of the stuff on here is a little hokey. It's a little bit cheesy for the sake of being cheesy, like laser shooting dinosaurs, come on. But all the same, it's just an awesome record for folks that like their power metal, a bit cheesy, a bit riff forward, riff heavy, and just very catchy stuff that you will have sort of sitting with you and lingering with you as you go throughout your day, even hours after you listen to it. That's what this record is to me. It's kind of perfect in that regard. Coming up next, an old favorite of mine coming in at number 7. That would be Story of the Year's new record, Tear Me to Pieces. This was a band that, back when I was kind of going through my screamo phase, maybe like 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, this was a band that kind of always stuck with me for just how unique they were to the genre. Because they had that pop-punk sensibility to them. They also had like enough of a love of metal that kind of came through in the riffs that they would write. The songwriting itself was just always super catchy. So to see them back at it, kicking ass these days as a 4-piece, and to put out this record that's just catchy song after catchy song after catchy song, like every time one of these songs comes up on a playlist that I have on a shuffle, you know, I never skip it because they're just all so good. Just exactly the kind of record that you want from this band. If you dig stuff that's a little pop-punky, a little bit screamo-y, but at the same time can get heavy when it wants to, this is a great record. Coming in at number 6, hey, this year I discovered a love of grindcore, and this record was one of my favorite ones this year. This is the Hers Collective. This is a great record with a great message behind it. I'm not gonna belabor it here for you. I would just ask that you Google it, kind of find out what this collective is all about. But basically, this is just an incredible record with some great guest stars on here. Everyone from Shirley Manson of Garbage to Melt Banana to rappers to folks from various screamo bands and other hardcore groups. And they're all coming together to create a just violent, explosive record that just hits a certain way, has a very perfect message to it. There's just tons of memorable moments on here. Even for me, who's not the biggest rap fan, like when you get to the song Judgment Night and that rap comes in, like you can't help but fucking feel that groove. It's so awesome. It comes out a little bit of left field and at the same time still perfectly fucking fits this record. And that's kind of how you feel with every individual element that comes through on this record. So start off with grindcore as a base, but now you're seasoning it with a whole bunch of weird shit here and there, making it into this incredible, memorable record. Coming up next is something that I'm kind of amazed that for as long as this band has been around, I've never really sort of dove into them and found out what they're about. And this record really just opened my eyes and expanded my senses a little bit. So Voyager came out with a record this year called Fearless in Love that is just amazing. Like some really great tunes on here. Songs like Ultraviolet, the title track, Dreamer, like just these tracks that just have instant hooks that get under your skin and pull you into the music. What their sound is like is also something super interesting because you've got very progressive metal prog bass. You've got, you know, those 7-string guitars, you've got the chunky heavy riffs, you've got some slightly notier passages here or there, but it doesn't get into the level of, like, say, musical masturbation, not by any stretch. And then out of nowhere, here comes all this, like, 80s-ish synth poppy stuff, just adding another layer, another texture to this that, there again, just pulls you in and keeps you in. Such a great record, great musicianship across the board, a great voice from the lead singer, who by the way is also the keyboardist as well. I mean, this is just an interesting record that from the moment I put it on, I was like, huh, where did this come from? What's going on here? I urge you guys to check it out as well. And now onwards to the top 4. Now this is kind of funny. I almost wanted to just take some sort of bullshit path with this and make this a 4-way tie for first place because all 4 of these records were really just hitting a certain way for me. But ultimately, you know, for you guys, I persevered and I did put them in some sort of order, but really take it for what I'm saying right now. All 4 of these records were mind-blowing to me. First up, we've got Ashen by Humanity's Last Breath. Now, Humanity's Last Breath was a band that admittedly I'm a little bit of a late bloomer to. I had always heard them in the past, but never really paid them too much attention until I saw them at last year's Summer Breeze Festival in Germany. I had my mind thoroughly exploded from watching them up on that stage. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Instant fan. And immediately started diving into their back discography, eagerly anticipating this new record. It did not disappoint at all. Basically, these guys are at the forefront of that thal genre that you sometimes hear about, that you sometimes read about. It really is a particular sound. People will call that bullshit, but literally look up anything that falls under that thal category, and this is kind of like an archetype for the genre, this band as a whole. Buster and all of the guys in this group are visionaries at creating just a wall of heaviness, and that really is the only way to describe it. It's heavy almost for the sake of it. You've got elements all over the place, blast beats, black metal-ish patterns, and then just these riffs that you can't even call them riffs. There's just various different chug patterns that at equal measure don't seem to really go anywhere, and yet seem to take you to the next destination along the journey that is this record. It's one of those things where if you've never heard this sound before, this is the band that you need to start off with, but this is also going to be the best band in the whole genre in my opinion. It blows my mind every time it comes on. You need to check out Humanity's Last Breath. You need to check out this new record. Okay. Now this particular record was one that was almost kind of painful that I put it as low as it did, because as low as a lot of moments of my year tended to be, this was just one of those perfect records that would just sort of help me in my lowest of moments this year. And if you listen to it, you'll understand why. This is Into Sorrow Evermore by Imperium Dekadenz. Like, this record really could have been number 1 at many different points this year for me. A super emotive, atmospheric black metal record. This is a band that I saw many moons ago at Wacken, and I got interested in them at that point. I thought, okay, this is something that's super interesting. But this record just hits a certain way, man. It's just a perfect record, start to finish, at really capturing that emotion of sorrow and sadness. The title of the record is perfect. Like, it's one of those things where, yeah, there's a lot of great songs. There's certain songs on this record that are a little bit better than others. But one of the things that you're going to notice is that it's just hitting you a certain way in the chest. Maybe a little bit of that can even be put on that really excellent mix that it's got, but it just pulls away at your chest throughout the listening experience. There's moments where you can literally curl up in the fetal position and just cry listening to this record. Now, that may not sound like a good time to some folks, but think about the last record that you put on that really made you feel a certain way and did that pretty much the whole way through the record. That is what this record really actually does. This was the first killer record of this year for me. It stayed with me throughout the whole year. There again, I could have easily put it at number one, not felt bad about it. But yeah, if you want an experience listening to blackened metal that has doomy overtones, a lot of atmosphere, and just really captures a certain vibe, this is a record you do not want to miss out on. Again, at number 2, a record that really could have been at number 1. This was a record that really ignited a certain love for me this year. Like, I just sort of kind of dabbled in like grindcore in the past. Like, okay, let me check this out. Not for me. Okay, let me check that out. Not for me. But like grindcore, power violence, all that sort of stuff just kind of escaped me. I never really got into it. And then this year, Rotten Sound put out the record Apocalypse. HM2 goodness for starters, so right away you got me hooked with that chainsaw. Now you've got all these songs that are short, shock and awe blasts of just pure aggression and violence. Remember the last record, how I was explaining how at different points of the year it just really sort of encapsulated how I was feeling? This is also like that. Just angry, man, did it hit a certain way. This is one of those records that I would put on and just fucking rage to. Just get it out of my system so that I can get on with my day. That is what you need a Rotten Sound record for. You need something that allows you that sort of release, that sort of mental eviction of those really horrendous and dark and intrusive thoughts. That is what purpose this record served for me this year. And if you just want a record that's like a half hour long that you just want to keep putting on repeat over and over and over and over again to really capture that aggression that you need to get out of your soul, god damn, dude, this Rotten Sound Apocalypse record, phenomenal. And finally, we have reached the top of the mountain. We have our number 1 record this year. There again, it fought hard for that number 1 spot, but ultimately I feel good about putting it at number 1. It was something I was eagerly anticipating ever since I saw this band at the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise earlier this year. Mind blown, because it was always one of those bands that was always on my radar. For whatever reason, never really sticking with me so much through their past discography, but seeing them live, it was all of a sudden like the clouds parted and I was opened up to what this band was really supposed to be all about. Epic, epic, epic is the word, okay? Keep of Kalessin's Catharsis. Wow, what a record. You want to talk about just a magnificent amount of bombast and epic patterns, like atmosphere, like like I'm almost speechless. I can't really even articulate it. It's just something that's better experienced than talked about. Just this wall of atmosphere, this wall of sound, big operatic moments on a black metal record. Like, you haven't heard a symphonic black metal band put out a record this good in probably decades, to be honest with you. This is just an immense record. Everything on here is immense. The mix job is perfect. The songwriting, those vocals, man, those vocals. Like, yeah, you've got the blackened metal shrieks, but then you've got these choirs that just come out for these epic chorus moments. And at the same time, it's extreme, it's fast, it's got a pace to it that really just pulls you in. It's what you want from this genre. It's everything that you want from this genre. I love it. I love this record. I'm really excited that it came out this year. I'm excited I got to see them perform some songs off of this record earlier in the year. As far as I'm concerned, welcome back, Keep of Kalessin, because this record absolutely destroyed, and in my opinion, nowhere near enough people talked about it. Nowhere near enough people mentioned that this amazing band that had been really popular before just all of a sudden came back, and came back with arguably the strongest record of their entire career. So once again, thank you guys for sticking it out with me. Another year has bit the dust. 2023 is going bye-bye, and these are the top 10 records that really got me going this year. Definitely check them out. Look them up on your favorite streaming services. Once you find out how amazing they are, go to the band's Bandcamp pages, buy some merch, buy the records, whatever, but support. As always, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Here's to the next year. Hopefully it's a lot better. And as always, take what you do seriously. Do not take yourselves too seriously.